The war came without warning. One minute the stars were quiet, the next, ships fell from the sky like fire. The humans called them the Devourers. No one knew what they wanted, only that they destroyed everything in their path. Planets burned. Cities vanished, and those who survived were taken. Yarok had lost his unit 3 days ago. He had wandered through ash and bones since then, trying to find any signal, any life. His armor was cracked, and the blood on his face had dried into dark lines. But his mind was still sharp, still alert. The Devourers weren't just monsters. They were clever. He heard the scream before he saw her. It echoed through the crater like a blade. Yarok ran toward the sound, pushing past broken metal and fire. Then he saw the pit. It was massive, glowing faintly with heat and smoke. Inside were creatures 20, maybe more. And in the center, they had thrown someone. She wasn't human, not fully. Her ears were pointed, furred like a fox, and a red tail moved behind her. But she had eyes like his, eyes full of fear. She wore broken armor, the straps torn and shoulders burned. She stood, trying not to fall, as the monsters circled her like wolves. Yarok didn't even think. He jumped. The fall was fast, painful. His legs hit first, then his back. He rolled to his feet and raised his weapon. The creatures snarled and backed off a little. The girl looked at him, shocked. He didn't know her name or what she was, but that didn't matter. She was alive. And they were not taking her. "Stay behind me," he said, pointing his rifle toward the biggest one. It had 6 eyes, each glowing orange. Saliva dripped from its jaw. It roared and charged. Yarok fired, the beam cutting into its chest. It screamed and fell. The others paused, then growled louder. They were testing him. The girl didn't speak. She was breathing hard, blood on her cheek, but her eyes watched everything. When Yarok moved, she moved. When he raised his gun, she crouched low. It was like she understood. That was good. He couldn't protect her if she ran. The pit was deep, and there was no way out. Not yet. The only way to survive was to hold the center. The creatures came again. Yarok fired, spun, kicked one back. The girl grabbed a shard of metal and used it like a blade. She fought too. Wild, but fast. Like she had done this before. They were surrounded. 10 of the beasts were dead. 10 more moved in. Yarok was tired. His gun was low on charge. The girl bled from her arm, but she didn't cry. He had no idea who she was, but she hadn't run. She hadn't begged. She stayed by his side. They backed toward the rocks. If they could trap the enemy into a narrow space, they might stand a chance. The monsters were angry now, growling and howling. The air stank of smoke and death. Yarok's hands were shaking. He didn't care. She was alive. That was enough for him to fight. She spoke for the first time. "Why did you jump?" Her voice was soft, broken. He didn't look at her, because no one else did. It wasn't the hero's answer. It was just the truth. She was thrown to die. And he couldn't stand by and watch it happen. The biggest creature leapt from the back, soaring above the others. It came straight for them, claws wide. Yarok pushed the girl behind him and screamed as he fired. The blast hit the monster's chest and tore through. But it still hit him hard. His back slammed against stone. His gun flew from his hand. The girl grabbed it before he could. She turned, aimed and fired. The beam flashed again. The beast dropped. Yarok lay there, stunned. She had saved him now. And her hands didn't shake. He looked up at her as the dust settled. "Can you still fight?" She nodded. Her voice was low. "Until I fall." It wasn't the answer of someone who wanted to live. It was the answer of someone with nothing left. That made Yarok angry, not at her, at the ones who did this. Whoever threw her into this pit. Whoever watched and thought it was justice. He would get her out of here. He swore it. even if it killed him. Yarok sighed, hurt badly, but he stood anyway. The monsters were still circling them, but slower now. They had seen what the two of them could do. Even beasts could feel fear. And right now, Yarok wanted them to feel it deep in their bones. The alien girl moved beside him, careful and silent. She glanced at his injury, but said nothing. Her focus was still on the danger. Her red hair was soaked in sweat and blood, but her eyes burned like fire. She looked like a warrior who had lost everything, but still chose to fight. They only had minutes. His gun was nearly out. Hers wasn't even real. It was a broken shard. Barely a weapon. He scanned the walls of the pit, too high to climb. No ropes, no ladders, no exit unless they made one. He needed a plan fast, she whispered. They're waiting for us to get tired. Yarok nodded. That was true. The monsters were smart in a savage way. They didn't need to rush. They knew the humans would bleed and fall. That was how they hunted. That was how they fed. Suddenly, a roar echoed from the far side of the pit. It was deeper, heavier. Something bigger was coming. The smaller beasts backed away, lowering their heads. Whatever came next wasn't one of them. It was their leader. From the shadows stepped a giant creature, twice the size of the others. Its horns curled like a crown. Its body was armored in bone and metal. Its eyes were black holes with a red glow inside. It stared straight at Yarok and the girl without blinking. The girl tensed. It's called a Ravager, she said. It leads the pit. It decides who lives and who dies. Yarok didn't reply. He didn't need to. He could see it in her eyes. She had seen this monster before. And somehow she had lived. The Ravager growled low and pointed at the girl. It made a strange gesture, like it was mocking her. Then it growled again. The other beasts began to move in a slow circle, closing the space around them. It wasn't just about hunger now. This was sport. Yarok stepped forward and raised his weapon. His voice was firm. You want her? You'll have to go through me. The Ravager paused, almost amused. It tilted its head and made a clicking sound. Then it charged. Yarok fired, but the blast bounced off the creature's chest. Too thick, too fast. He dove aside, pulling the girl with him. The Ravager crashed into the ground, dust flying into the air. Rock shattered under its feet. The ground shook as it turned again. They ran behind a pile of bones, using it for cover. Yarok reloaded with his last charge cell. We need a weak spot, he said. The girl looked at the creature, her eyes narrowing. Its eyes, and its mouth, that's where the armor is thin. Yarok nodded. It wasn't much, but it was something. The Ravager charged again, roaring with rage. Yarok waited, heart pounding, then fired straight at the eye. The beam hit. The creature screamed, shaking its head wildly. One eye gone. It was hurt now. And now it was truly angry. It thrashed, swinging its claws at everything. Smaller monsters were thrown into the walls. Dust and blood filled the air. Yarok held the girl close as stones fell around them. Then the Ravager roared again and looked. Right at him, it remembered. The girl moved. She ran low and fast, straight toward the creature. Yarok yelled for her to stop, but she didn't. She slid under the Ravager's legs and stabbed upward with the shard. It screamed as the metal cut into its inner thigh. Yarok saw his chance. He ran up the rocks and jumped from a higher point. His blade was in his hand now, the rifle tossed aside. He brought it down hard into the Ravager's neck. The scream that came was loud enough to shake the pit. The monster fell, crashing into the stones. It didn't move again. Silence followed, heavy and strange. The other creatures backed away slowly. Their leader was dead. The fight was over. At least for now. The girl stood, her chest rising and falling fast. She wiped blood from her face and looked at him. You shouldn't have jumped, she said. Yarok smiled, just a little. I know, but I don't regret it. She said nothing more. But she didn't look away. They needed to get out. The creatures were backing off, but they would return. Yarek looked at the walls again. He saw something. A broken cargo lift buried behind stone. Maybe they could fix it. Maybe they could climb. Maybe they had a chance. He turned to the girl. Can you climb? She looked at the lift, then back. At him. If you help me, she said. He nodded. Then we're not done yet. They moved together toward the broken metal and rust. Their fight had only just begun. The lift was old, rusted, and half buried under broken bones and fallen rocks. Yarek moved the debris with bleeding hands. Every pull hurt, but he didn't stop. The girl helped too, her movements quick and silent. She didn't complain. Neither of them did. The creatures were watching. They didn't come closer, but they didn't leave either. They waited like shadows, eyes glowing in the smoke. They had lost their leader, but hunger didn't die with command. Hunger stayed. The lift engine was cracked. Its cables hung loose, and the power cell was dead. Yarek had seen this type before. Military cargo haulers. Built for strength, not speed. It might work. It had to work. If not, they'd die before sunrise. The girl crawled into the side panel and checked the wiring. I can hotwire it, she said. But it'll be loud. They'll hear. Yarek looked at the monsters again. Let them. Just get it working. She nodded and started to work. Yarek stood guard. His body ached, but he held his blade ready. The rifle was useless now. He watched the darkness and counted the eyes. Dozens, maybe more. The creatures weren't rushing. They were patient. That made them more dangerous. The girl ripped wires with her bare fingers and sparked them together. The lift jolted once, then again. The sound echoed like thunder in the pit. The creatures growled, moving closer. Yarek raised his weapon, daring them to try. Finally, the lift creaked upward. Slowly, too slowly. The engine groaned like a dying animal. The girl jumped inside and reached for Yarek. He grabbed her hand and pulled himself up. As the platform rose, the beasts howled and charged. The first monster slammed into the metal below, then another. The lift shook from the impact. Yarek swung his blade down, cutting into one that climbed the side. Blood sprayed, thick and dark. The girl kicked another creature's hand free. They rose higher, inch by inch. The wall beside them was broken stone and metal spikes. The beasts kept jumping, claws reaching, teeth snapping. Yarek didn't blink. If even one got on the platform, it could tip the whole thing over. The girl shouted, "They're climbing the wall." Yarek turned and saw them. 3 of the monsters were using broken cables and rock to pull themselves up faster than the lift. They would reach the top before them if nothing changed. Yarek looked around and found a loose hook on the side. He grabbed it and tied his rope through it. "Keep going," he told her. Then he jumped from the platform and slammed his boots into the wall, swinging toward the monsters. He slammed into the first one and knocked it loose. It screeched and fell, crashing against the others. Yarek swung again and stabbed his blade into the second one's arm. It hissed and swiped, but he kicked it in the face and sent it down. The last one reached for him, claws slicing through his side. Yarek screamed but didn't stop. He wrapped the rope around its neck and pulled tight. They both swung from the wall. One struggling, one bleeding. Only one survived. Yarek climbed back up, breathing hard, blood pouring from his wound. The girl grabbed him and helped him onto the platform again. "You're insane," she whispered. "Yeah," he groaned. "But we're still alive," she didn't argue. The lift neared the top. Daylight was just beginning to show above the edge of the pit. They had almost made it, but Yarek's vision was blurring. The blood loss was bad. He could barely hold the blade now. He leaned against the wall. She tore part of her sleeve and wrapped it around his wound. "Stay with me," she said. Her voice was firm now, stronger than before. "Don't close your eyes." Yarok forced a smile. Wasn't planning to. But he wasn't sure he could keep that promise. The platform reached the top edge with a loud metallic snap. They climbed over the side and dropped to the ground. Behind them, the pit rumbled. The creatures roared below, but none followed. Not yet. They had escaped the cage. Yarok lay flat, staring at the sky. He had never seen it look so bright. The girl sat beside him, her red tail curling around her legs. She didn't speak. She just looked at him, as if trying to decide something important. He turned to her and asked, "Do you have a name?" She paused for a second, then said softly, "Kelith." It was the first time she said it, and it sounded like it hadn't been spoken in a long time. Yarok nodded slowly. "Nice to meet you, Kelith." Kelith helped Yarok sit up against a rock. His armor was cracked open at the side, and blood was soaking through the cloth. He winced, holding pressure on the wound. The pain was getting worse, and his breathing was slow. But his eyes stayed sharp. The air outside the pit was dry and full of dust. The ruins around them looked ancient towers broken in half, metal skeletons of ships, and scorched ground as far as the eye could see. This wasn't just a battlefield. It was a graveyard. Kelith searched the ruins quickly. She moved like someone used to running, used to hiding. She found a broken supply crate and forced it open. Inside were old medkits and a half-full canteen. She ran back to Yarok and began cleaning his wound. He groaned as the sting hit, but didn't stop her. She was focused, hands steady. He watched her quietly. Her eyes didn't shake anymore. There was fire in them now. Something had changed in her after the pit. She wasn't just surviving. She was deciding. "You've done this before, Yarok." "Sighed." Kelith nodded. "Many times. I escaped once. They caught me again." Her voice had no fear in it now. "This time, I wasn't supposed to get out." Yarok frowned. "Someone threw you in on purpose?" Kelith didn't answer, but her silence said enough. They stayed hidden in the broken tower. Kelith built a small fire from scrap and used parts of the medkit to stop the bleeding. Yarok's breathing got easier. She shared the water with him, one sip at a time. Outside, the roars in the pit had faded. "Why did they throw you in?" Yarok asked. Kelith looked at the fire. "Because I said no." Her voice was cold. "I was supposed to obey. Marry the one they chose. Become a gift in return for a treaty. I refused. So they called me a traitor and fed me to the beasts." Yarok stared at her. "That's not justice." She looked at him and nodded once. "No, it's tradition." He clenched his fist. "Then it's time someone broke it." She didn't smile, but her eyes warmed for a second. She was starting to believe he meant it. They rested for a few hours. Yarok slept, but Kelith stayed. Awake, she watched the horizon. She knew they would come. Not the monsters, they were too far now. But the ones who ruled above, the ones who had thrown her away. They wouldn't want her back. They'd want her erased. When Yarok woke, she was already packing what little supplies they had. "We need to move," she said. "Scouts fly at sunrise. If they find us, we won't have time to run." He sat up slowly. His body ached, but he nodded. "Then let's not be here when they arrive." They moved through the ruins, careful and quiet. Yarok leaned on her when he had to. She didn't complain. The land was broken, sharp with twisted metal and glass. Kelith led them through. Paths only she seemed to know. Places where drones couldn't see. They stopped near a broken transport ship half buried in sand. Kelith motioned him inside. The walls were bent, but the power core hummed faintly. "We can call for help here," she said. "If anyone is still listening," Yarok raised an eyebrow. "You trust someone will come?" She shrugged. He looked around and found the old comms unit. It was dead, but he managed to pull some wires and reroute power from the core. The screen blinked weakly. "Help me send the signal," he said. Keleth stepped closer and placed her hand on the console. "I will," Yarrick typed in the code. It was his old unit's distress beacon. He didn't even know if anyone from his squad was alive. But if there was a chance, even a small one, he had to try. Keleth added her own signal frequency when he didn't recognize. She didn't explain it. The signal went out, crackling into the sky. They waited in silence. 5 minutes, then 10. No response. Yarrick sighed and sat back. "We tried." But Keleth wasn't looking at the coms anymore. She was staring at the sky. "No," she whispered. "Something's coming." He followed her gaze and saw a dark shape far off. A ship. Low, silent and fast. But not a rescue. Not from the way Keleth's eyes narrowed. "That's not yours." "Is it?" Yarrick asked. Keleth shook her head. "It's the ones who threw me in. They found us." The enemy ship came closer with each second. It flew low, almost touching the tips of the broken towers. There were no lights on its hull, no signals. It wasn't here to talk. It was here to erase loose ends. Keleth pulled Yarrick deeper into way. The broken transport. She moved quickly, her tail low, ears twitching at every sound. "They will scan for life," she said. "Hide your heat, your signal. They don't take prisoners. They silence problems." Yarrick tried to stand on his own, but the pain pushed him back down. His side was still raw, the bandage soaked. "I can't run," he said. "You go, I'll stay." Keleth turned sharply, eyes full of fire. "I didn't leave you in the pit. I'm not leaving you now." She grabbed a blanket of thermal mesh and covered him. Then she placed old power cells around the floor, creating heat shadows. She knew their tech. She knew how to fool them. Yarrick watched her work, breathing hard, proud and worried at the same time. Outside, the ship hovered. A low hum shook the air, then a hatch opened. 2 figures jumped out, black armor, silver blades, visors glowing red. They moved with deadly grace, silent and sharp like machines. Hunters, not soldiers. Keleth crawled through a broken hole in the side of the transport. She held a piece of metal like a mirror and watched their movements. "They split up," she whispered. "One is coming here. I'll deal with the other." Yarrick tried to stop her. "You can't fight both." Keleth looked at him. "I don't have to. I just have to stall them." Someone answered our signal. I heard it before the jamming wave. "We just need to stay alive a little longer." She moved through the ruins like smoke. The hunter walked past her trap and hit the tripwire. A charge burst from a hidden mine, knocking him down. Keleth rushed in and slammed the blunt edge of a pipe into his helmet. It cracked, but he didn't fall. He grabbed her arm and slammed her into the wall. Sparks flew. She gasped but twisted free, slicing his leg with a sharp edge. He staggered, and she kicked him in the chest. The blow sent him falling off the edge into a pile of debris below. She turned, panting, and ran back toward the ship. The second hunter was already near. He had found the thermal decoys and was cutting through them. He moved fast, silent, his blade humming with charge. Keleth grabbed a stone and threw it to distract him. It worked for 1 second. Just enough for her to grab a pipe and swing hard. It hit his arm, but he caught her next strike mid-air. He twisted her wrist, and she cried out, falling to the ground. The hunter raised his blade above her. Before he could strike, a flash of light hit him in the chest. Yarrick stood at the edge of the wreck, holding his rifle with shaking hands. "Get away from her," he said. The blast didn't kill the hunter, but it pushed him back. Keleth rolled aside and kicked the hunter's knee. He buckled. She jumped and slammed her elbow into his helmet. The visor shattered. The hunter roared and swung wildly. She ducked and stabbed the edge of broken steel into his throat. He dropped. She crawled over to Yarrick. He was pale, barely standing. She caught him before he fell. You weren't supposed to move. He smiled through the pain. Didn't want to miss the fun. She shook her head, trying to hide the fear in her eyes. Stupid human. Above them, a new shadow passed. Across the sky, a second ship, different color, different shape. Keleth's eyes widened. That's not theirs, she whispered. The ship lowered slowly. Its lights were soft blue. And it was signaling. Yarok whispered, reinforcements? Keleth nodded. Maybe yours, maybe mine. Either way, they had a chance now. She waved at the ship, holding Yarok up with one arm. The ship responded with a soft pulse of light. The hatch opened with a hiss. Soldiers jumped down this time in silver armor with green emblems. One of them yelled, "Stand clear." "We're friendlies." Keleth let out a shaky breath. Yarok collapsed into her arms. Help had come, finally. Asterisk. The soldiers surrounded them quickly, forming a defensive circle. One knelt beside Yarok and started treating his wounds. Another helped Keleth to sit down. She didn't argue. Her body was bruised, her arms swollen, but her eyes stayed sharp. A medic scanned Yarok's side and shook his head. "You're lucky," he said. "A little deeper, and it would have cut through your lung." Yarok gave a tired grin. "That's me. Always stopping just short of death." The medic snorted, but kept working. Keleth leaned against the wall of the ship, watching the others. She didn't relax. "Who are you people?" she asked. One soldier stepped forward, removing his helmet. He had gray hair and a scar over one. We're peacekeepers. We got your signal. Came as fast as we could." Yarok coughed and lifted his head. "How did you get through their jamming?" The man pointed upward. "Old tech. Works when the new stuff fails. You used a mix of frequencies. Smart thinking." Yarok looked at Keleth. "That was her." The peacekeepers began scanning the area. "More hostiles might be coming," the commander said. "We need to leave now." Keleth stepped forward. "I know where their base is. I can lead you there." The soldiers paused, surprised. "You're from their side," one said. Keleth met his eyes. "I was. Not anymore." Her voice was calm, steady. "I know what they're doing. I know who they're selling to. If you want to stop this, you'll need me." The commander looked at her for a long time. Then he nodded. "Fine, but you're under my protection now." He turned to his team. "We move in 10, load the wounded. Get ready for extraction." Keleth walked back to Yarok and knelt beside him. "They're going to use you," Yarok said quietly. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "Let them. As long as I can burn down the people who threw me away, I don't care what they call it." He smiled weakly. "That's the spirit." The ship lifted off soon after, rising through the ash-filled sky. Below them, the ruins shrank. The pit became a dark dot. Keleth stared down at it for a long time. She didn't speak. But something in her face changed. Something inside her closed. Yarok lay on a stretcher, eyes closed, breathing steady now. Keleth sat near him, one hand resting lightly on his arm. When he stirred, she didn't move away. "Still here?" he whispered. She nodded. "I said I wouldn't leave." Hours passed. The ship docked at a hidden base, carved into a cliff. Fresh air, clean water. Real food, the kind of things Keleth hadn't seen in years. But she didn't take them. Not yet, not until Yarok could walk again. The commander gave her new clothes, a communicator, and a choice. "You can leave. Start over. Or stay and help us take down the ones who started this war." Keleth didn't hesitate. "I stay. But I don't want a new name. They'll remember Keleth." Weeks later, she stood in a room filled with officers and maps. She gave orders now. She planned missions. And when her people saw her, they stood straighter. Because she wasn't just someone who survived the pit. She came back from it with fire in her eyes. Yarek walked into the room one morning, finally healed. He wore new armor, polished and strong. He saw her across the table, deep in strategy. When their eyes met, they both smiled. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. He had kept his promise. Keleth walked toward him, stopping just close enough to hear his breath. "Next time," she said softly, "I jump for you." He laughed, shaking his head. "Let's not make that a habit." She smiled for real this time, not as a survivor, but as something more. Together, they stepped onto the bridge of the next mission. Not victims, not shadows, but warriors who came from the pit and chose to rise. The stars stretched out before them like open roads. And, for the first time in a long time, they moved forward as one.